This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello there and welcome to Global Business Africa. We'll be giving you insight into Africa's business and financial markets. I'm Uche Okoronkwo, coming to you from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Let's start with a look at the markets. Now, emerging markets today do not seem rattled at all by the current global uncertainties. MSCI's emerging market stock index climbed 0.5% today. It did extend gains to a third straight session. Now, some upbeat economic data from China did help to keep hopes for a steady economic recovery alive. South Africa's JSE followed its Asian peers, getting some support from better than expected data from China, as of course investors await the Reserve Bank decision on Thursday. Now, also coming up on today's show, Nigeria makes a U-turn and opts to regulate the use of digital currencies in the country. TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, proposes ways to ease U.S. security concerns. And the East African region launches an electronic cargo and driver COVID-19 tracking system. Well, we begin Global Business Africa in Nigeria, where the country's Securities and Exchange Commission says that it will regulate a trade in digital currencies. This is to provide protection for investors and to ensure that transactions are transparent. The agency had in the past declined to recognize digital currencies as legal tender. In 2018, the Central Bank of Nigeria said cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ripples, and Litecoin, amongst others, weren't regarded as money. But the NSE defended the change, saying that it is obliged to regulate when the character of the investment qualifies as securities transactions, and added that it views cryptocurrencies as exchangeable securities. Now, of course, Nigeria has become one of the first African nations to officially recognize cryptocurrencies as securities. Let's find out more about its plans from Deji Badmus. He joins us now in Lagos. Deji, good to have you on the show. Now, is it clear, Deji, what sort of regulatory framework we're going to see for digital currency firms from the SEC, especially now that they're qualified as an asset class? Will they be regulated as if they're regular financial operators?
Uche, that's exactly what the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission has actually said, that basically crypto assets now would be seen as securities and would be treated as normal securities now. And so that's the reason why SEC says it's going to regulate them. So what they're actually required to do is that you know, the sponsors are respected. For instance, according to SEC now, that it would just deem every crypto assets now as securities, and it's up to the sponsors, the sponsors now to actually prove that they are actually not securities, and that they are supposed to be exempt, because SEC actually has exemptions now, and so it's up to these sponsors now and the individuals now who are operating these crypto currencies now to prove that they're actually not securities. And if they're able to prove that, then it's okay. They'll be allowed to run as if they were not securities. But if they are not, and if the SEC is not satisfied that they are not actually securities, then they would be required to register. And registration, of course, is in twofold, because they would have to file for, this proved now, and then file for registration. And they would be subject to various forms of regulation that the SEC would still unveil. So basically, they'll be treated as every other securities. And that's the reason why the SEC is bringing them under its banner, just to ensure, of course, as you have said, that there's transparency, because we're beginning to have a growing number of crypto scammers now in the country. And so SEC now wants to ensure that there's transparency and that people's investments are actually safe, because the truth is that quite a number of Nigerians are now using crypto.
Well, let's delve further into how this will affect crypto firms in Nigeria, especially how this recent move will change the perception of cryptocurrencies and impact the growth and usage of crypto-related businesses in Nigeria going forward.
Well, to be candid, crypto operators are very, very happy about this development. It's something that they've actually been yearning for a very long time. And the belief is that this would increase the adoption of cryptocurrencies in Nigeria. More and more people would begin to. So it's like, you know, cryptocurrency is now being recognized, legally speaking. So it's what these crypto operators have actually been praying for, and now they're getting it, official recognition, so to speak. So the impact, from what we have heard from some people, is that the impact is expected to be huge and enormous, but we just have to wait and see. But the truth is that quite a number of Nigerians, especially the young, are now playing in the cryptocurrency you know, arena now, and the adoption going forward is expected to be huge, especially now that their operations will be regulated and they are getting official recognition.
Quite true. In fact, Nigeria is arguably the largest source of Bitcoin trading volume in Africa right now. So give us a sense of how seriously could the growth of cryptocurrencies impact Nigeria's financial system?
Well, first of all, it will make a lot. It will make a whole world of difference, especially when it comes to money transfer. We all know the challenge Nigeria is currently going through in terms of forex now. So this is one area that people are expecting it will make enormous impact, and that when it comes to money transfer now, that it will be easier, and you know, it will also reduce the dependence on hard cash, you know, so to speak. So, but, you know, for now, the jury is still out. You know, one thing about cryptocurrency itself, as we have seen in other parts of the world, the volatility of cryptocurrency and the unpredictable nature of it. So it's actually too early in the day to tell, you know, what impact it will have, because we just have to wait and see how everything pans out. But the truth is that the projection going forward is that the impact would be enormous, and that it would change the face of you know, business transactions in the country, and especially in the area of money transfer now, that we're going to see things now work very, very differently, and then that it will make it easier for people to actually transact business and carry out trade. But then, as I said, Uche, we just have to wait and see, because we all know how volatile cryptocurrency could be at times.
Now, this is a question not just for Nigeria, but other countries globally. Does Nigeria currently have an optimal legal environment for crypto firms and, of course, crypto-related business transactions?
Not exactly, no. And the reason is simple. It's something new in this country. And you know, when it first came here, the Central Bank of Nigeria, of course, warned a lot of Nigerians against transacting business in cryptocurrencies. And of course, as you're also aware, it prohibited financial institutions in this country from doing any kind of transaction in cryptocurrency. So that legal framework is still not there yet. But I think going forward, now that they're getting this regulation from the Securities and Exchange Commission, now that things are assuming a completely different shape, and it's going legal, then I think things would evolve, and the whole picture will change. And you know, so obviously, while that framework is not there at the moment, and it's not really there at the moment, but going forward, things would evolve, and I think we would begin to see more people now from the legal side now take interest in you know, the legal framework of how cryptocurrencies now would operate, and all of that. So it's definitely going to evolve. And now that the SEC has given this recognition, so to speak, I think things will change going forward.
Well, thank you, Deji, for your insight into that interesting development. That's Deji Badmus joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Well, let's now turn our attention to tangible currency. Bankers and traders have welcomed Ethiopia's new currency notes. The government unveiled the new notes on Monday in a bid to fight corruption and contraband currency. Here's CGTN's Gerum Chala with the details.
Ethiopia has changed its currency after 23 years of using the old notes. It is the third change of its kind in 43 years. The new notes include 10, 50 and 100 birr. A 200 birr note has also been introduced.
The new currencies are completely new compared to the old ones in terms of security feature, in terms of design, and the features that are existing at the back and the face of the currencies. So we have tried to include some features, neutral features, which almost everyone will agree upon.
Using these notes, the Ethiopian government wants to control the largely out-of-bank distribution of birr, fight corruption and contraband trading.
The amount of money distributed in the economy, which is the result of unnecessary money printing, has caused a lot of inflation and encouraged criminal activities across the country. That has been a challenge for us over the past 2 years. We believe that the change in currency will present a good chance of us fighting all these hurdles.
Many across the country have expressed excitement with the change.
The change of currency will enable me to deliver better services to my customers. You see, the birr was losing value due to high inflation. Now, if what we are told is correct, I expect the new currency to have more value.
Well, I believe this is a very important move made by the government to change the banknotes. I also think it will help control money laundering and movement of illegal cash. It will also have a positive impact on the economy.
Ethiopia now wants to have replaced all the old currency notes within 3 months. But bank professionals say, though the change is very exciting news, the process must take a shorter time.
I think
what we have had is great news for the banking industry, but my concern is the time allocated to replace the old currency. I suggest to shorten the time as we have many bank branches across the country. In order to minimize the feared criminal activities, we should do the whole job within 1 month.
The National Bank of Ethiopia is confident the new Ethiopian birr notes are difficult to counterfeit as its security features are up to date.
We have included security features that are by far better than the old ones. Especially for the 100 birr note, there are 2 security features which are very difficult to counterfeit and copy and so on. Especially the spark security feature, which is very, very expensive and which also exists in big currencies in other developed countries. We have tried to include that security feature. Second one is a rolling star, which is also the current, updated, or the state-of-the-art security feature. So we try to include security features that are very difficult for counterfeit and that are difficult to copy or forge this currency.
These new notes are going to be distributed in the Ethiopian economy in the coming few days. And to print them using foreign companies, Ethiopia has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to achieve best quality and sustainability and also avoid counterfeiting in the future. Grumchala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Now, a Tunisian insurer called Assurances Maghrébia has moved closer to a public listing. That's after the Tunis Stock Exchange approved its admission in the market. The Tunisian bourse has not had a new listing for over a year now. And listing of this 47-year-old company is seen as a welcome move to help kickstart activity. Here's CGTN's Adnan Shaushi reporting.
Leading Tunisian insurance provider Assurance Maghrébia is set to be listed on the main board of Tunisia's stock exchange in the fourth quarter of this year. Shareholders of the insurer had earlier approved the company's decision to expand the company's capital in July. Maghrebia achieved a consolidated turnover of 236 million dinars, around $86.7 million, which represents a rise of 8.4% compared to the same period last year. The company also posted a consolidated profit result of 8.5 million dinars.
After 47 years of activity in the insurance sector, Maghrebia Group has enough experience to open its capital to the public and list its securities in the Tunis Stock Exchange. The goal is to concretize new development opportunities on the long term. Thus, Insure Assurances Maghrebia will reinforce its visibility and transparency.
The group's general manager added that the company seeks, through the public listing, to tap into the additional sources of funds and strengthen its position as one of the leading insurers in the North African country.
Maghrebia will offer 30% of its capital to the public. The overall offer is to trade 1,350,000 shares. The initial public offering before the end of this year will reinforce the strength of the insurance industry and the Maghrebia Group in general.
Experts view the planned public offer and subsequent listing on the stock market as an opportunity for Maghrebia Group to continue its growth, despite the challenges posed by the second wave of the pandemic.
The negative impact of the coronavirus crisis on insurance companies in Tunisia has remained limited. The public listing of Assurance Maghrebia shows that the repercussions of the pandemic in the first 6 months of 2020 did not totally paralyze the economy. Maghrebia's move will certainly have a positive impact on the financial market in Tunisia.
Assurance Maghrebia has distributed 5.3 million dinars, around $1.95 million of dividends to shareholders, which amounts to 45% of the insurer's earnings this year. Assurance Maghrebia is one of the 3 leading players in insurance and reinsurance in Tunisia. After more than a year without a new listing, players in the market are hopeful of closing the year with a new entrant on the stock exchange, despite the uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 crisis. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And now look at other corporate headlines today. South Africa's top gold producer, Harmony Gold, is looking to expand elsewhere in Africa. It is considering investing in Papua New Guinea, where it already owns assets, and Australia. Now, the appetite for expansion overseas comes as Harmony completes a $300 million deal to buy Anglo Gold Ashanti's last mines in South Africa. And German car maker Daimler will pay $1.5 billion to resolve a U.S. government diesel emissions cheating investigation and claims from 250,000 U.S. vehicle owners. In court documents, the Mercedes-Benz maker agreed to pay the owners up to $3,290 each to get polluting vehicles repaired. It also agreed not to oppose paying $83.4 million in attorney fees and expenses for the owners' lawyers. Now, owners will get about $800 less if a prior owner files a valid claim. Meanwhile, Facebook is launching a dedicated space on its social network to share accurate information about climate change. This will be similar to hubs for COVID-19 and voting as part of an effort to combat misinformation. Now, the data will come from the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and its partner agencies, such as the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And finally, YouTube has announced that it will test a version of its new TikTok arrival, YouTube Shorts, in India. It will limit videos to 15 seconds, and the platform will feature creator tools that are similar to Chinese-owned TikToks. This comes after India banned TikTok and 58 other Chinese apps in June as border tensions rose between the two nations. And that is a look at our corporate headlines. Well, let us head into a quick break now, still coming up on the show. Oil companies are reportedly pushing for a return of plastic use in Kenya. And a decision to lift fuel subsidies brings an unwelcomed result in Nigeria.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global business, only on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra Nairobi.
Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis,
Syria,
Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Welcome back. Now, big oil and chemical companies are reportedly trying to get the U.S. government to pressure Kenya into dropping its plastic waste restrictions. This is as Washington and Nairobi negotiate a new trade deal. Here's Giles Egyptian reporting from the U.S. Capitol.
A group of the biggest oil and chemical companies in the world, including Shell, Exxon and DuPont, reportedly has big plans for Kenya. An affiliate of the environmental organization Greenpeace, called Unearthed, has obtained documents from the American Chemistry Council, or ACC. In a letter to the US Trade Representative's office, the ACC says Kenya could serve as a hub to sell chemical and plastic products to the rest of the continent. Environmental groups fear Kenya could be pressured into walking back restrictions on plastic waste as it tries to seal a trade deal with the US. The ACC says any deal won't override Kenya's domestic approach, but there's also mounting concern about the influence of lobbying groups on US environmental policy.
These industry groups have taken over the Environmental Protection Agency, so I'm not surprised to see them engaged in international diplomacy. It's illegitimate, it's unfortunate, and hopefully it'll be put to an end.
The Trump administration has launched initiatives like the Trash-Free Waters program to reduce the amount of plastic and other waste that ends up in rivers and oceans. However, the US hasn't ratified the Basel Convention, a United Nations pact that regulates the global trade in plastic waste. According to the Plastic Pollution Coalition, the US is shipping less plastic waste to countries with poor waste management systems than it was, but it still amounts to tens of thousands of shipping containers every year. The Trump administration says its trade deal with Kenya could serve as a model for agreements with other countries in Africa. So whatever Washington and Nairobi agree on US exports of plastic products and waste could shape the approach of countries all over the continent. Giles Gibson for CGTN in Washington.
And let's head to Egypt now. The country has issued a decree to private sector companies and state-owned corporations to install electronic payment terminals on site within the next 6 months. Now, the directive is in line with the law that was passed by Parliament in 2019. It authorizes electronic payments in a bid to fight corruption and curb tax evasion. Here is Yasser Hakim with more details from Cairo.
The Egyptian government is not looking back in its push to implement the e-payments law, which will require all payments to be made online. Already, all banks have established online sites and are urging clients to use the electronic service rather than going to the branches. Citizens have had the option to pay government bills, car license, fees, and similar services from home. But now cashless payments will be imposed on other sectors too.
At the beginning, electronic payments were optional, but slowly they were trying to make it an obligation. The first phase has been successfully tried over the last 3 years. The state issued ATM cards for all government employees to receive their salaries and pay bills. The second phase is to apply electronic payments in shops and all types of purchases and services. Online payment is slowly succeeding as you can now pay from your computer instead of standing in long queues to pay through cash. The third phase is the public and private sector entities. They are going online for internal transactions between them and with the public.
The government believes using the electronic system can help the state monitor the flow of money, and that will help it track money laundering, tax evasion, and illegal transactions. The Central Bank of Egypt has been adamant to apply these measures. This week, 26 car agencies in several cities have been closed down for receiving physical cash from the clients. However, millions of Egyptians, especially in the rural areas, do not have bank accounts and have never dealt with banks. Many also don't have access to strong internet.
There's an aggressive awareness campaign in rural areas to teach the simple grocery seller or housewife how to use these services and to provide bank accounts and ATM cards for them. Later, everyone will be forced to go online. The Ministry of Communication is also improving the internet infrastructure.
Still, there's been a positive reaction from citizens on the adoption of digitization of payment regulations.
It makes life easier and better. We can do a lot of things with it. I use the Visa in most of my purchases. I shop in the supermarket and on the internet and buy books, pay Uber rides and train tickets. It's safer than holding cash.
I used to work in the Gulf countries, and all my bills and transactions were through the mobile phone, whether with public or private entities. I also don't need to go to banks, especially with the outbreak of COVID-19, so it's safer.
But it's not an easy process to migrate to a cashless community. A lot of challenges still remain, ranging from infrastructure, awareness, and implementation. The government says the process is going to be gradual and expects to take a few years to cover the whole North African country. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Now, Nigeria's recent removal of fuel subsidies has been met with mixed reactions. While it has been a good move for the economy, it has also driven the prices of petrol and electricity up, leaving many businesses in the country struggling to make ends meet. Well, CGTN's Terry Wangari takes a look.
Earlier this month, President Muhammadu Buhari increased the price of petrol and electricity. He said the increases were needed to bolster the country's economy by removing costly fuel subsidies and changing electricity tariffs, both of which held prices artificially low. But the move has seen many businesses in the country's capital, Abuja, struggling to see a future.
It has not been easy for us. Before now, we used to buy NEPA like 22,000 or 20,000 respectively, depending on the kind of work we do, maybe in 1 month. But now it's just like 2 weeks I bought lights for 20,000. I'm sure the thing is not even up to 10 units again. So the charges is massive and it's not encouraging at all.
When we see that we can't buy more of these lights, we minimize the usage of the diesel. If we see that we don't have customers, we off everything. Even if there is light, we only on it when there's somebody we want to work on. That is the only way.
Nigeria's economy contracted by 6.1% in the second quarter due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and low oil prices. Last month, sources said a much-needed $1.5 billion World Bank loan was held up due to concerns over the implementation of reforms such as the fuel and electricity price changes. But rising inflation, which the central bank expects to rise to 14.15% by the end of the year, is increasing costs for businesses and their customers. Experts say this is the perfect time to hold the government accountable.
Well, it will impose a lot of hardship in terms of increasing the cost of production. But the important thing, I think the big picture is that Nigerians should insist on value for money. For instance, if you hiked electricity tariff and you said you are going to deliver 20 hours of electricity a day, let's hold them to that, because if factories get 20 hours of electricity, even at the new tariff, it will be cheaper for them.
Businesses in the country have been left wondering how they'll make ends meet.
With the way things are going, if government do not do something, we might forced to quit the business, but because you cannot be working at the end of the year not making anything. The main aim of this business is to yield something at the end of the month.
While many Nigerians say the increase doesn't help citizens cushion the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, others believe it's a strategic decision by the government to grow the economy. Be that as it may, a solution is needed before more people in the country slip into unemployment and eventually into poverty. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
Meanwhile, West Africa's livestock trade is facing a significant drop in activity and a potential economic loss. That's after the Economic Community of West African States imposed sanctions on Mali following a coup back in August. Now, with the neighboring borders closed to Mali, economic trade is facing a decline amidst a global pandemic. CGTN's Shornella Lupuana has this report.
The political crisis in Mali has led to an unforeseen economic loss for its trading partners in Guinea, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire and Niger. Traders and animal herders are reeling from a shortage caused by the border closures. As a result, some traders in Niger have found alternative ways to keep their businesses going.
It is true that the borders are closed between Mali and Niger,
but people still smuggle their cattle in. So whoever has money and wants to buy cattle from the Malian sellers can go there and get them.
The situation is deplorable. Since the closure of the borders, there has been a negative change in our market. This has upset the buying and selling of livestock between our two countries. It's a situation we cannot bear for very long.
Experts say while countries such as Niger and Guinea are less impacted by the border restrictions, the consequences could be more severe for Senegal.
This situation is going to restrict me a lot because most of my cattle come from Mali. With this embargo, I will no longer be able to travel and buy new goods. For the past few days, my livestock have been declining. If this situation continues, I'll be forced to increase the prices.
If Mali doesn't send us any more cattle and prices rise, we won't have enough cattle in Senegal. At the moment, we have enough livestock in reserve, but if this situation persists, we risk suffering the consequences, especially in terms of meat prices in the market. I hope that this situation will improve before it's too late.
Livestock is one of Senegal's priority sectors to boost food security in the country.
Mali is not just any country for Senegal. It's a privileged partner of Senegal. A complete embargo against Mali would have a considerable and immediate impact on the Senegalese economy.
Traders are now calling for a speedy solution to the crisis in Mali.
This ECOWAS sanction is really detrimental to us and also to livestock sellers in Mali. Our members leave Guinea to go to Mali to buy sheep, cattle and goats to supply the Guinean market. But this is impossible at the moment.
When we go inland to look for livestock, we can spend several days on the road. Here in Guinea, it is not easy to find the cattle together in one place, but it is easier for us to get it from Mali. The Tabaski festival has just ended and it is difficult to find sheep at the moment, so the authorities need to find a solution to this situation.
But Guinea's resilience in livestock trade could lessen the impact of the ECOWAS restrictions. Livestock rearing in Guinea is the second largest rural sector activity after agriculture, providing an income to an estimated 30% of the rural population. According to the United Nations Development Programme, livestock is Mali's third largest export product. It's also a source of income for more than a third of the population there. Solving the country's political tussle could help avert a potential economic crisis that has dented a region already impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Hlonela Lupuwana, CGTN.
You're watching Global Business Africa. Let's take a short break now, but still to come. TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, proposes ways to ease U.S. security concerns. And this Chinese chef is cooking his way out of a pandemic storm in New York.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
And to the ongoing TikTok saga now, ByteDance, the parent company of the popular Chinese video app, says that it has submitted a proposal to the U.S. government that it believes will address Washington's security concerns. That comes as American tech giant Oracle confirmed reports of a partnership with the company. U.S. President Donald Trump earlier set a September 15th deadline for TikTok to sell to an American company or face a shutdown in the country. Now, Microsoft previously announced that it had lost its bid for the app. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says the Trump administration is set to review TikTok's deal with Oracle this week. CGTN's Nathan King has more from the White House.
The clock is ticking here in the US over the forced sale of social media sensation TikTok's US operations. After US President Trump set a deadline of September 15th, and over the weekend there was a flurry of corporate activity. The result? TikTok's Chinese parent ByteDance announced leading bidder Microsoft is out, data storage and software giant Oracle is in. Oracle says it will serve as the, quote, trusted technology partner of TikTok in the US. Walmart, meanwhile, had partnered with Microsoft on the bid, but now says it may switch to Oracle in a bid to deal with ByteDance. The US Treasury Secretary announced that the White House deadline is now September 20th, not the 15th, and they will be examining the deal over the coming days.
It's going to go through a national security review in the next couple of days, and then we'll be sitting down and reviewing it with the president. But as we've said before, a condition of any deal is to make sure that we believe that the code is safe, that U.S. citizens' personal data is safe, and that the phones are safe.
The plan seems to be storing TikTok user data from the US on Oracle's cloud servers. But the Trump administration isn't calling all the shots here. China's new export controls cover proprietary artificial intelligence algorithms, and CGTN reporting suggests that Beijing regulators may not back any deal with a US company. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs had this to say.
On one hand, some U.S. politicians are preaching the ideals of achieving fairness and equality and building a so-called clean network. On the other hand, without any evidence at all, they generalize the concept of national security and abuse state power to purposelessly coerce and unjustifiably crack down on non-American enterprises that have taken the lead in particular fields.
Whether Beijing would accept a minority stake in TikTok from Oracle is as yet unclear, as both governments are currently studying the proposed deal. What is clear is that TikTok is a highly sought-over asset here in the US. With 100 million users, it's very valuable, and the battle over this forced sale has attracted the biggest names in US technology. No financial details, however, have been disclosed. What may help this proposed forced sale is the fact that US President Donald Trump and the founder and largest shareholder of Oracle, Larry Ellison, are close friends. Larry Ellison has raised funds for US President Trump, and the current CEO of Oracle has served on the president's transition team. The US President spoke just 2 weeks ago, saying that he was open to a tie-up between Oracle and TikTok. Nathan King, CGTN at the White House.
Now, in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has launched a parliamentary process by which the British government will knowingly break international law by breaching parts of its divorce agreement with the European Union. Now, Johnson says the move is necessary to prevent a breakup of the UK at the hands of the EU. But as CGTN's Richard Bestic now reports, the controversial act has set Johnson on a collision course with not just the European Union, but also with the United States and many of the most senior members of his own political party.
Brexit, back and as divisive as ever.
United Kingdom Internal Market Bill.
A long-negotiated treaty between the EU and the UK. At its heart, an open border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, now viewed by Britain's leaders as a device by which the European Union might dismember the United Kingdom.
We cannot have a situation where the very boundaries of our country could be dictated by a foreign power or international organisation. No British Prime Minister, no government, no Parliament could ever accept such an imposition.
According to the country's Labour opposition, reneging on the EU deal, a centrepiece in Johnson's successful election campaign last year, would trash Britain's reputation worldwide.
I never thought respecting international law would, in my lifetime, be a matter of disagreement.
5 former British Prime Ministers said they agreed, including Tony Blair and John Major, instrumental in the Northern Ireland peace process 20 years ago. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, has said Britain will never get a trade deal with the Americans if Johnson threatens peace in Northern Ireland. And the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, says the controversial move could torpedo trade talks completely. Boris Johnson now faces a perilous parliamentary path, and despite the howls of protest, it is perhaps a barometer of the state of play between the European Union and Britain in their trade talks. Britain accusing the European Union of absurdities and extremism, words not likely to secure the best of deals. Richard Bestick, CGTN, London.
Now, Chinese restaurants in New York are amongst the worst hit economic casualties from the pandemic. They've been struggling against a lockdown in the spring and summer, a slow recovery, and lingering anti-Asian sentiment. But one restaurant has been defying the odds by leveraging on the diversity of Chinese food and how it intersects with cultures around the world. CGTN's Li Ling Tang reports from New York.
It's onions and peppers, bean sprouts, chicken.
Lucas Sin, executive chef at Junzi Kitchen in New York's Greenwich Village, has a few winning recipes up his sleeve.
This is our take on chow mein, which is very popular in American Chinese restaurants.
And that's his not-so-secret sauce.
But the way we do it, the sauce that we put in is more similar to the original Cantonese version.
It's a recipe that hints at how this 27-year-old chef, who's already made quite a name for himself in New York's restaurant circuit, has kept his business going strong since early in the pandemic.
I wanted to keep cooking creatively, and I wanted to keep thinking about the things I was interested in despite the pandemic. I wanted to give my team a chance to research and think about how Chinese food it might actually be good for you, right? There's all this sentiment that Chinese food must be bad for you if people are getting sick in China. There's that end of the narrative, and there's also my just research in how big Chinese cuisine is across the Chinese diaspora all over the world. Chinese food seems to have almost an uncanny ability to be everywhere around the world, and it seems to touch so many different cultures and communities. I wanted to sort of explore those intersections.
As the pandemic raged, Junzi Kitchen launched several new initiatives, including this pop-up sister restaurant that pays homage to American Chinese food and their Share a Meal program for frontline workers. Particularly popular has been Lucas's distance dining dinners, which is like dinner and a show during social distancing.
Here is the yakka mein with the beef.
Lucas collaborates with a diverse range of chefs on 3-course menus that showcase how Chinese food intersects with the cuisine of other cultures, from Creole and Chinese to Indian and Chinese.
The other favorite one is the Szechuan.
Once the food is delivered, diners go on a scheduled Instagram Live to learn about the food they're eating while getting a demo on how to heat the food properly.
The fact that this right is basmati.
It puts the social in social distancing.
Our primary mission at Junzi is to show people that Chinese food is more wonderful and diverse than they might think otherwise. Just because there's a pandemic out there doesn't mean that mission goes away.
But the pandemic did leave behind multiple casualties in the restaurant industry, with Chinese restaurants hit by a 1-2 punch from the lockdown and from a spike in racism against Asians amid escalating US-China tensions. Chinese restaurants have been vandalized and defaced. Lucas, who is from Hong Kong, has had beer cans and even a fluorescent light bulb thrown at him.
It's been a real bummer. It's been a really difficult time for a lot of Chinese restaurateurs and Chinese chefs in particular because of a lot of anti-Asian, anti-Chinese sentiment. But the great thing is, despite all of that sort of animosity, it seems as if, to me, that many people in making Asian food, making Chinese food, have chosen to build resilience into their businesses.
And that's another ingredient in his recipe for survival, plus a bit of luck.
To this day, I don't know how or why we were able to come up with some of the good ideas that we did come up with in the last couple of months. But most of it comes down to a team at Junzi and at Nice Day that is really able to think quickly on their feet and also to double down and remind ourselves of what our mission as a restaurant is.
As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. And that is the key takeaway. Li Tan, CGTN, New York.
Well, let's now take a look at commodity markets today. Oil prices edging up slightly, but of course forecasts of a slower than expected recovery in global fuel demand continues to weigh on prices. The International Energy Agency trimmed its 2020 outlook by 200,000 barrels per day. They cited caution about the pace of economic recovery. Now, gold prices were steady today as the dollar remained subdued. Investors are turning their focus to the U.S. Fed monetary policy meeting. Also, U.S. Treasury yields are coming down a bit today. Well, let's take a short break now. Still to come on the show. The East African region has launched an electronic cargo and driver COVID-19 tracking system.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN. See the difference.
Now, the East Africa Community Partner States have rolled out an electronic cargo and driver COVID-19 test tracking system. That marks the beginning of ramping up driver registration and issuance of a regionally recognized EAC COVID-19 digital certificate. That, of course, will go a long way in decongesting traffic and delays across East African border posts. Well, CGTN's Daniel Arab Moy reports on how the new system will work.
Levion Bed is a long-distance truck driver. He plies the highway between Rwanda's capital Kigali through Uganda and finally to his destination in the Kenyan capital Nairobi. Ombet, just like thousands of other drivers, has tested the bitter part of bureaucracy while attempting to deliver the much-needed goods across East Africa.
We are suffering here in Malaba a lot. Jump from Kenya up to here can complete 3 days. Then from Malaba to Kampala, you can again complete 3 days because there's a web bridge there in Bustema, which disturbs also a lot.
Between March and May, the time to cross borders in most of our borders had almost gone up 3 times because of the challenges. Drivers could even spend 5, 7, 10 days at the border waiting to cross the border.
The situation has left many East African countries struggling to let essential trade through without the coronavirus slipping in with it. Reliance on manual certificates and delayed test results, coupled with long-distance truckers' ever-growing web of interactions, has not made matters any better. Trademark East Africa, in consultation with the East African Community Secretariat, has now introduced a regional digital COVID-19 certificate and surveillance system that will monitor long-distance truckers' crew and enable COVID-19 contact tracing.
The system is designed in a manner that there is a mobile application. Drivers download the mobile application into their smartphones at the point when they are being registered. They get a username and passwords for that account. It's just a normal application the way you would have a normal mobile application, and it has two basic features. One feature is to enable the driver to monitor their work, so they are assigned jobs by their company to move cargo from point A to point B.
When a driver arrives at a checkpoint or a border crossing or at the port, all they need to do is to open the application and show the Ministry of Health officials their QR code.
The new system will allow partner states to electronically share truck drivers' COVID-19 test results, therefore minimizing need for multiple tests in a single trip.
So a driver starting their journey from Mombasa does not need to start their journey and go and queue in Malaba to wait to be tested. They can be tested down in Mombasa and they begin their journey. All they need to do is, when they arrive at the border, is to demonstrate that they have a valid COVID test result by showing their QR code, which will be scanned and verified by the Ministry of Health officials.
I think the new system will really help us because it has easen up the transportation of our goods and the processing of our letters up there. So I actually for this system because we had lined, like my lorries in Malaba, Kocholia. I cannot move to that end because of the checking of the status. So I've been very happy because we are now checked only once.
Drivers will no longer have to go and aggregate at the border points since national results are recognized anywhere they are tested in laboratories that are recognized by the WHO across the region. Authorities have so far registered over 40,000 truck drivers, with approximately 6,000 active and using the new digital application system. Uganda has also made it mandatory for drivers crossing into the country to have a valid digital regional certificate or else be subjected to a test. Other East African community countries are expected to follow suit by registering all truck drivers into the new system. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Malaba, Kenya-Uganda border post.
Well, before we go, here's a quick look at Africa's currencies today. South Africa's rand firming 0.3%. It is heading for a third day of gains as focus shifts to the Reserve Bank's decision on Thursday. Now, traders say with a possible rate cut by the Reserve Bank, the rand may battle to gain much more beyond 16.6 per dollar. Now, over in Nigeria, the Naira is struggling to get a boost from the central bank's intervention, which of course is failing to contain speculation in the market. The Naira depreciated at the parallel market to above 440 Naira per dollar, and that's despite the third round of forex allocations to Bureau de Changes. However, Nigeria's exchange rate at the official NAFEX window remained stable to close at 386 Naira per dollar. Well, that's it for this edition of Global Business Africa. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen. You can also follow us on our various digital media platforms. From me, Uche Okoronkwo, and the rest of the team, thanks for watching.